So here we are with the openSUSE project 11.4. Now this is the release candidate 2 of openSUSE, but it is pretty much in final stages of development. So here we are with the latest release of openSUSE. Now of course there have been rumblings and there is indeed going to be a rolling release of openSUSE, but this is the next milestone in their release cycle. So openSUSE 11.4 comes in a 4.7 gig download. That is the standard install. You can of course get live CDs for GNOME and KDE. Now the DVD comes with 4 desktop environments, a KDE 4.6, GNOME 2.32, Xfce 4.8 and LXDE 0.5 something or other. I could be wrong on those numbers, so I'll check back later. But basically I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the desktop environments like I've done in the past, because you are probably familiar with these desktop environments by now, so I'm just going to hop straight into what makes openSUSE specific. Okay, as we all know, openSUSE is RPM based distro. It is of course the open source equivalent of the SUSE Linux Enterprise Desktop and SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, and generally speaking what you'll find is, especially in Europe, is that there are a lot of businesses that run the SUSE Linux workflow on their machines in their corporations or businesses. What generally happens is, of course, these employees have laptops. Those laptops don't exactly work as well as they would like to, so they install openSUSE on their laptops, and that way they get the same amount of integration and collaboration with the rest of the SUSE workframe. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the pre-installed applications, as most of you know what comes on openSUSE. Basically it's solid stable software. We do have LibreOffice as the default Office suite. There you can see they have their own custom theming on it, and of course we have the Firefox 4 Beta 11 I believe, but I think Beta 12 is available through the repos if you update. openSUSE is considered to be an enterprise desktop. I feel it's very much geared towards business users, as I've touched on in the past, and I feel like with 11.4 they finally got to the stage where I would be happy to use their KDE version by default. In the past I have had issues with KDE 4, and therefore I haven't used it as a desktop. But now with KDE 4.6 being as good as it is, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm happy to use this as my default desktop. It's not the most exciting release of the year by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel that openSUSE is just trying to provide a stable workstation. While other distros can innovate and change things, that's fantastic because that's what keeps driving the Linux community forward. But I feel for those who just need something that remains the same, that stays the same, then openSUSE is a great option. You know, with Ubuntu moving to Unity and trying out different things with Wayland, a large percentage of the Linux community is going to be thrown off, particularly the new users, by Ubuntu's new interface. Now it might really work for some people, but for other people it might not. So it's great to see that openSUSE just keeps sticking with what they know, with what works and what other people know. So that release after release they just provide the same solid workspace with all of the latest software and drivers, kernel, etc., etc. So the pre-installed apps with KDE are just standard KDE stuff. I'm not going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about is the personal settings. Now they've renamed system settings, the KDE system settings, as personal settings. And basically this is to distinguish between your user space settings and the administrator settings, which are through YAST. So once you put in your root password, you can change the root settings. And of course YAST is what has made openSUSE famous over the years. You can see that you can configure everything in here: hardware, software, bootloaders, network devices, host names, Windows domain memberships, all sorts of stuff. You can set up your firewall, security, virtualization, you name it. It is the system administrator's heaven. And YAST is fantastic because it even has support for the terminal, so that if, for instance, X server crashes on any number of any of the workstations that you might be managing, you can just pop in straight into the command line, punch in YAST, and you can launch a terminal end cursor version of YAST, and it looks very similar to what you're seeing now. So YAST is what has made openSUSE famous over the years, and to be honest, it is a major improvement in this release of openSUSE 11.4. One thing that they're really driving is the new speed of the package management, and I will agree. The speed of the package management in openSUSE in the past has really been its major letdown. The time it takes to contact the servers, the time it takes to install the software, then trigger all the cache updates, etc., it takes a long time. But finally, they've gotten it to the stage where it's actually pretty speedy, and it's comparable with apt. In fact, I would say apt's almost getting a bit slower. Do you agree? If you agree, leave a comment in the... Let me know what you think in the comments below. But anyway, back to openSUSE. They've definitely improved the speed a lot with openSUSE 11.4, and it's actually really quite speedy to install software. Now, in all honesty, their package manager isn't the most brilliant in the world, but you can see here I'm running off the stock standard mirrors of openSUSE. I haven't changed any local mirrors or anything like I usually do, and it's extremely quick to refresh those repositories and to go out, fetch the information that it needs, and it comes straight up with your software installation. It's a big improvement on 11.3, 11.2, etc. So I think this is where the main performance boost is going to be felt, is with package management, etc., etc. Alright, so KDE 4.6, we all know and love it now. It's definitely the KDE that everyone was waiting for, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Let's hop over to GNOME. Okay, so now here we are in GNOME, and again, not a lot has changed look and feel wise. The icons have been revved slightly. As you can see here, the icons are a little bit different. But so yeah, basically it's the same desktop that we've seen in openSUSE 11.2, 11.3, so forth. They're still using the same Sonar theme, which, in all honesty, I don't have a problem with it. It works. It's nice. They've made some slight improvements to the icon set, which is always nice, but in all honesty, you know, they don't really have that much to offer as far as look and feel is concerned. Would be nice if they revved it slightly, but you know, it's supposed to be an enterprise class desktop, or those who know what they're doing, so people are going to change it at the drop of a hat anyway. That's not what an operating system is about. You can't judge a book by its cover, as they say. So, of course, applications, now we've seen this last time with the openSUSE 11.3 review, they've got the same settings here. You can see your new applications installed up there, and you can go all the way down to graphics and internet and multimedia, etc. Now, apart from Flash and VLC and Xvidcap and Zine, I have not installed anything else, so we'll run quickly through the applications here. Games, standard GNOME. Graphics, standard GNOME, Fspot, Inkscape, LibreOffice, Scanlight, Ristretto, you name it. Internet, all the KDE stuff and all the GNOME stuff, and Thunderbird and Firefox. Multimedia, all the stuff you'd usually see, plus Parole Media Player, which is an interesting inclusion. VLC I added myself. Office, LibreOffice, great to see that. Preferences, all the preferences you could want. System, all the system stuff you could want. And yeah, that's pretty much all the same as last time, so nothing big there. And overall, they continue to provide the same solid workspace for GNOME as you would expect to see. In fact, I reckon this would be a great desktop to install on library computers, government computers, because of the fact that they don't want something that's distracting. And I still find openSUSE very beneficial when I need to get work done and I don't want to get distracted. Desktop environments are great fun, widgets are great fun, but in all honesty, when I'm trying to think hard about what I'm working at, I need something which isn't going to get in the way. And that's what openSUSE is. It performs really well, the desktop effects are really smooth and they really don't get in your face. All the settings are in a centralized space, all the user settings are in a centralized spot, and I haven't had any of the hardware issues that I've had in the past with openSUSE. It detected all my hardware fine. The battery support for openSUSE continues to be great, as again I've alluded to before. It's a laptop distribution in my opinion. It's great, it works fantastic on a laptop, it's got great power management. And that's really all I've got to say about the GNOME edition. So part 2 of this review is going to be coming soon, and I'm going to be looking at the LXDE and Xfce 4.8. And honestly, I actually personally think that these two desktop environments are the better half of openSUSE. So stay tuned, that'll be coming soon.